Yo, what's going on, YouTube? It's your boy Big Dom here to talk some more about some boxing as usual. So before we get started, make sure to like, subscribe, and get active in the comments. As I always say, if you're active with me, I'm gonna get active back with you. So if you subscribe with me, I'll definitely make sure to return the favor. Hopping right into it, this weekend we have a decent fight card. And the headliner is George Ferocious Kambosos out of Australia going against Richardson Hitchins. This fight is at 140, I want to say. Ideally, this is a fight for me that I wouldn't say I'm highly intrigued with, but of course, since I love boxing, I will be watching it. I'll say off top, I'm not too high on either of these guys. But once again, I respect I respect anybody stepping in that ring to put it all on the line to, make it happen. So, for this fight, just off top, I'll just let you know I'm expecting Richardson Hitchins to win. And I'm expecting him to win easily if he is on the top of his game. Going into a little bit about each boxer, I think George Ferocious Kambosos, if you've been around the sport, you've probably seen him fight a few times. One thing about George that I can give him credit for is that he's a very tough and very durable guy. He likes to be a pressure fighter. He has a lot of endurance. I think Lomachenko is probably the only person, if I can remember correctly, that has stopped him. So I think that says a lot in the game of boxing where, the only time you've been stopped has been by one of the greatest boxers of our era. So, if you know anything about George Kambosos, is he's a big talker, man. He sells fights, and so he's always done a good job of that. But the downside of that is that he doesn't always deliver, in my opinion. I think George Kambosos is just a good fighter. I don't think there's anything special about him, and that's not to be disrespectful, but that's literally just trying to give unbiased commentary of what I've seen in the past from him. I think that George Kambosos is really still living off the fame of his biggest win in his career, which is probably against Teofimo Lopez. And not to take anything away from him, but Teofimo had a lot going on that night, from, possibly being sick to, the whole incident with Triller. We could go into a lot of that, but that's not what this is about. But I haven't really seen a lot from George Kambosos since then, as far as anything that's going to wow me into thinking he could win this fight against Richardson Hitchins. I will say I think the best chance that he has to beat Richardson Hitchins is to make this fight ugly. I think, with him being a pressure fighter, with him having the endurance that he has for the most time, I think if he can outlast, Hitchinson, and when you get into the deeper rounds, kind of make it ugly, I think that's probably his best way to beat Hitchins. But I will say I think that's going to be really tough because I do think Hitchins is a very high boxing skill type boxer. He doesn't really have any power. I think out of 19 fights, he might have 7 knockouts. Excuse me. But the thing I do like about Hitchins is that he has a really, really good jab. And he also is a good mover. So if you know anything about Kambosos also, is that I think he really has problems with fighters with a good jab. And you can go back to his two fights against Devin Haney. I think Devin Haney just jabbed the crap out of Kambosos, and Kambosos really didn't have an answer for it. So you really seen what he looks like against a top level fighter. And even more to champion what I'm saying, I think in the second fight against Haney, Haney turned the jab up even more. And for George to have that time to prepare for the jab and still not be able to do anything with it, I think that bodes well for Hitchins in this fight, with everything that Hitchins does is really set up off that jab. I think this fight is a kind of a level setter for me with Richardson Hitchins. As I said, I think he's a good, solid young boxer, but I don't know how great he is. I think we'll find that out in due time. But he's been talking a lot of noise, saying what he's going to do to George Kambosos. And so I think he's put the pressure on himself to come in here and really, really look good against Kambosos. Because if he doesn't, with all the talking he's been doing, I think it's going to not make him look so great. So the only weakness I see with Hitchins in this fight is that Hitchins is not an inside fighter. I think the key, as I said, is to jab and set up Kambosos and, get out of the way. I think if he stays within himself and his skill set, that he'll pretty much watch George Kambosos. But ideally, if George Kambosos can make this an ugly fight, I think he possibly may have a chance, but we'll see. So once again, I'm going with Richardson Hitchins in this fight. Let me know if you agree with me or disagree. Let me know why, and we can talk about it. So make sure, as I said, to get active in the comments. I'll make sure to respond, and we can have some conversations. But, until next time, make sure y'all enjoy this weekend's fights, and we'll be talking soon. Once again, subscribe to the Big Dom Network, and talk to you soon.